Welcome to the Happy Customer channel. This week's guest is Tarek Moaz, a 20-year veteran in international workforce management. Our host is Gio Puccini at the Buena Vista studio in Miami.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the Happy Customer channel. I'm your host, Gio Puccini. I have over 20 years of experience in the customer service space, handling call center operations across the world. Today, I'll be talking to Tarek Moaz, who also has over 20 years of experience in this space across several industries, also all over the world. So let's dive into his take on making happy customers. Hello, I'm Gio Puccini, also known as Gio. Welcome to the Happy Customer channel. We've got today Tarek Moaz joining us. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Gio. Like Gio said, my name is Tarek Moaz. I've spent about 20 years in financial services and business services in various roles and capacities. And today I'm running the BDR department for Ultatel, which is a unified communications provider that covers the U.S. and international.
Awesome. And that's one of the more prominent VoIP or telecommunication services in the U.S., right?
Yep. Yeah, well, it's considered now unified communications because it's a lot more than just the phones. It's also the video conferencing, file sharing. So it's all of your communications unified under one platform.
That's perfect. And that does bring us, because with communication, it's critical that we're servicing clients. And I guess that's a big part of what you guys are able to help facilitate for people, correct?
Absolutely. And it's one of the areas that separates us from the competition is our focus on customer experience and customer service.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with that, with customer service or customer experience?
Well, sure. I mean, my entire career really has been in customer service. Thinking about my first job in college, working at the NYU gym. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're working with the public or you're dealing with people, you're automatically in customer service and customer experience. And then after that, I was in financial services as a financial advisor and a bank manager and lots of different capacities and roles. But all of them, went back to customer service and that customer experience.
That's awesome. So do you feel that's developed you to the person you are now?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely made me always, think about other people's experience. So it's always something in the back of my mind now in my day-to-day life.
So anytime you make any action or you make decisions or you communicate, you're pretty much grading yourself almost on how effective you are in customer service, would you say?
Sure, yeah, or I'm doing the opposite because we're all consumers day to day. So Sure. Whenever I'm at a restaurant or in a store, I'm always kind of analyzing like what they're doing for customer service and and how that would translate. So I think anytime you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see what the experience is like, it definitely helps.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's, I guess, kind of like any industry, when you do it enough, then you can kind of look at it from a different perspective at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that regards, like what would you tell yourself if you were your younger self? What advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably tell myself, life is hard and everybody's going through something. So it's important to keep that in the back of your mind whenever you're, in a difficult situation or trying to help somebody. Have that patience. Don't take it personal. It's not about you. It's about the situation, and we signed up to address situations like that. So, I think we have to embrace it and just have patience and put yourself in other people's shoes. That's what I would.
Yeah, that's very sage advice. I would agree. Yeah. And how would you say the industry has changed throughout your career?
That's interesting, actually, because at one point, especially in the financial services industry, there was a big push towards customer experience, where in the past, that was non-existent. So it was really nice to see that, and I think it made a big impact overall for, in terms of business for the banks or the financial services, and as well for the consumers. Unfortunately, nowadays, I'm starting to see maybe where a lot of places are starting to cut back a little bit on that, maybe because of the environment we're in. Okay. So I think they still know that it's really important, but maybe some places just don't have the resources to allocate to it. So we're starting to see a little bit of a drop-off again, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even there's recent articles in the news that you see there's certain industries that are almost making it impossible to get any customer experience or any customer service, right? So how would you define a good customer experience?
A good customer experience is one where we deliver on the customer's expectations. I think in a nutshell, that would be a satisfactory customer experience where I'm getting everything that I'm expected to get or receive. in a way that I'm expected to receive it.
Okay. And I'm sure even when you do that, there are instances where a customer is still going to be dissatisfied regardless. So what would you do in that instance, or how do you turn them around?
Well, I think one of the most important things when it comes to handling situations like that is letting the person know that you're speaking to that they're being heard. A lot of times people they just want somebody to listen to them and understand the situation they're going through. So once we do that, you want to kind of take ownership of the situation. Let them know that, hey, I heard what the situation is. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it for you. And then finally, we have to execute on what we said we're going to do. If we said we're going to take care of it, we have to own it and take care of it for them. Yeah,
that's awesome. I completely agree. How do you feel about the overall thought of the customer is always right?
That's something that's always existed, and I believe in it, and I think it's true. Except of course when the customer is wrong, but but that's okay. Because sometimes that's part of the experience is for us to educate our customers, but to do it in a nice way. No one wants to be lectured. Even if somebody's wrong, no one wants to be told that they're wrong. So I still believe in that the customer is always right, even when they're not. But I think it comes more to how we work with that particular customer in that situation. But I do still agree with it.
This episode is brought to you by Buena Vista Creative, Miami's premier digital marketing agency. Visit buenavistacreative.com for more info on how Buena Vista can help your business increase revenue and create the brand and digital presence it deserves. Video and podcast production, web and app development, search engine and social media marketing, logo creation, outdoor, print, swag, and more.
So yeah, completely agree with you. Sometimes the customer is not always right, but it is a great philosophy that does help take the lead on how people need to act at certain times. It's kind of like the golden rule, I guess, right? Yeah. So you do have experience not only in the U.S., is that correct?
Yes.
Do you mind elaborating a little bit on your international experience with customer experience?
Oh, sure. Well, some of my personal projects, excuse me, that I've worked on in the past, we did rely on hiring some overseas talent. Which is becoming a lot more common these days with things like Fever, websites like that, where people are looking more towards international services and support. It wouldn't affect quality at all, which was a big concern, of course, right? You always want to deliver the service, but you want to keep it at a certain level of quality. So
absolutely, and just to kind of clarify a little bit on the quality, you're talking more the voice quality or the performance?
Everything.
Everything.
That is a big, I don't want to say concern or complaint,
but it is.
From consumers in general, we need to be able to understand the person that we're speaking to. Mm-hmm. So of course, communication skills and things like accent are really important. So when you're working with an organization or a country where they have that talent, and it doesn't affect the quality, it's definitely a great opportunity.
It makes a lot of sense. So what countries have you supported or had operations in?
Mainly the Middle East, Egypt, a little bit of Jordan, but mostly Egypt.
And what percentage of the population, I don't know if you've been able to figure that out or study it, I'm guessing you may have, but what percent of the population are considered English speakers?
Wow, that's it's becoming a lot more now. It's kind of rare now to have somebody that doesn't speak any type of English.
That does not.
Yeah, that does not speak any English. But when it comes to the quality or the level, that can still vary. Where you'll still have some folks that have more of an accent than others. But what we're noticing now is, because of the internet, because of media, because of how much smaller the world's getting, those things are starting to disappear. Like. Where the experience is, hey, you're talking to somebody, they're in a different country, but they sound like your next door neighbor, which is the experience that you want to go for.
Especially us, we're in Miami.
Yeah, no, actually, in some cases it might be even better than your next door neighbor. So
that's true. Actually, since I haven't been in Miami that long, I've been here for about 6 months. And
wow, welcome.
Yeah, I'm still pretty new, but really great people. I've actually been speaking more Spanish.
Wow, yeah.
Living in Miami than even when I lived in South America, which is interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Spanish speakers, and in Egypt, I guess I don't know. Is it the local language there? Would it be Egyptian or
Arabic? Yeah, Arabic. Egyptian dialect of Arabic. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So from there, it seems like the majority of the people now speak English. And is this something that has been kind of dictated because of government policies, or just people know that if they speak English, they have more opportunity? What's led to that?
I don't know if it was ever a government thing. I think that the people, and I think this is pretty much the case all over the world. People love the American culture, and they love American movies, American TV shows, American music. So naturally, if you're able to speak it, and you're going to enjoy it more, and the fact that they're exposed to it, and that they get to speak with more people through the internet, their accents are getting better. Even things like video games, where people are playing video games all day long, but now they're talking to people all over the world. That's giving them the practice that they need to get that accent, down. So,
yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think the world's become so much smaller in that aspect, because when you're joining certain video games, like you're saying, movies is a bit different, because at that point you're just looking at a specific point of time and it's you and that movie, which is totally different, and you can take that information, and depending on your level of acquiring information, you may do it very good or not.
And you're not talking either. You're not talking back to the movie or the TV show. Usually you're just absorbing it. So that's interesting, yeah.
Some of the people who I have actually hired internationally as well, same thing. The ones who do gaming a lot and are always talking to people globally, they do have a habit of not just, because when you learn it in school, you can speak it, but when people speak back to you, sometimes you get thrown off, especially if they ask questions. And that's what we're learning with some of the operations we have internationally. But I guess when they game, they're more used to speaking it, and it makes them a little bit more comfortable. Have you found that there's a different learning curve depending on how they've acquired their English speaking?
Wow, I haven't analyzed that yet. I haven't dug deep into that, but that could be something to look into, actually. Because that's a good point. Yeah, somebody maybe that's gets most of it from TV and movies, they can comprehend maybe a lot, but when they want to express themselves, they might have some difficulty with that. That's interesting. Something to keep an eye on moving forward.
That's some of the challenges that we've actually seen as well. So there's certain people when they're school taught, when they go, because when you're doing role plays in school, it's very different, because it's a lot more structured. The person's helping you out. They're like, come on, you can do it. But when it's gaming or something, and you're like, you're going to kill me if you don't if you don't do this right or something, it's a very different approach. So that's interesting. What about on recruitment? Like how do you find these English speakers in the different countries you support?
A lot of the same ways that we find people here. Local ads. Okay. Facebook and WhatsApp are really popular modes of communication there, and kind of like sharing information. So those are some of the areas. LinkedIn, of course, now. But to find the level that you're looking for, referrals is always some of the best ways, because those people with those language skills, they tend to hang out in the same circles, or they tend to know people from past experience. So referrals are always.
That's a good point. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because they're running in the same circle. That's awesome. And what are some of the challenges you find when you're handling operations internationally?
Which challenges don't you find, maybe? But
this is not necessarily isolated to international operations, right? Because it's operations anywhere. It's just there's some different complexities, I'm assuming, to international operations, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the local laws and things like that that you have to abide by. That might not always be the same as the ones that we have here, which is fine. But we just kind of have to adjust to that. Also, maybe I don't want to say it's not the work ethic, but maybe the work environment. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe it.
Cultural thing, or
more it could be more of
a
cultural thing. Yeah, when it comes to certain ways of doing business, but they're not major, and they're very slight. One thing that we did kind of come across was because of the time difference. Getting some of our employees, back home safely and things like that. Those were some precautions that we took overseas that we might not take here.
That makes sense. How big of a time difference is it where you typically operate?
7 hours ahead.
Oh, okay. So it's a significant difference.
Yeah, they're usually working from like 3 till midnight.
Okay. So it's an evening shift there. Yeah. In the Philippines, it's typically like a 24-hour difference, or not 24. That would be the exact same time, but a 12-hour difference. So when it's 12 noon here, it's 12 midnight there. And that's why a lot of times the night shifts that most people in the U.S. don't like doing the night shifts. They love them because it's the day shift there, but usually it's skeletal crews. But then as it's becoming more and more popular in the Philippines, then at that point, now we're offering more and more day hours in the U.S., which is night hours over there. So it's very, in the beginning, it can be a bit dangerous, but it's becoming so much more common for people to work at nights in the Philippines for call centers that just transportation is a lot more readily available for nights. portion of the population works at night? Is it a large or just a
well, because in a lot of these countries, a big part of their workforce is catering to international clients. Maybe not all in the U.S., but also Europe, Asia, other parts of the world. So we're starting to see more and more of that. But it is more of a traditional 9 to 5. But we're starting to see a big part of the population, kind of work different hours to accommodate wherever they might be working geographically.
And this is not necessarily just in the scope of call centers, but this can be different professional roles supporting international.
Oh, I mean, well, yeah, we're seeing that all over, all different kinds of jobs now. Mm-hmm. Accountants, bookkeepers, architects, design. I mean, there isn't a profession now actually that probably it couldn't. I don't want to say it couldn't be done overseas, but I think there's a lot of companies now that are utilizing overseas talent for all types of different positions. It's not just customer service.
Especially like troubleshooting, I agree. I know I've heard that people are saying if you're a plumber or an electrician, your job is going to be a lot safer than some of these like lawyers or engineers because a lot of those talents can be done remotely. It doesn't require somebody. But if the toilet gets broken or the sink gets clogged, someone has to physically go there.
Sure.
Although with doing some of the walkthroughs, I guess that can be done to a certain extent. But if a piece needs to be replaced, there's no way to say, hey, somebody from another side of the world, fix that. Won't happen.
What's actually interesting, too, is that a lot of, we're seeing a lot of people in the U.S. go overseas for medical procedures. Forget about bringing the talent over here. Where we've got people going to see the talent over there just because it's a better value. 100%. And you're not, sometimes you're getting better quality than the quality you're getting here. So it's something to consider.
That's a very good point. I actually had a friend who did a startup based off, what do they call it? Medical tourism.
Yeah.
And there's a hospital in the Philippines that is very well known because it has very good support. And so what a lot of people do is they fly from typically Australia, Hawaii, and a few other places that have direct flights to the Philippines, and it's not a super long trip because from here it's pretty long.
Yeah.
But then they'll fly from there and do the medical support, and the cost of the places, the accommodations, the flight, the food, and all the medical procedures are like a quarter of the cost than if they would have done the hospital there. So that's a very good point. It's interesting how sometimes outsourcing will help a certain environment that it uplifts it to the point where now other people want to go there for other things as well, such as tourism also, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually did laser eye surgery, or LASIK, maybe 20 years ago overseas.
20 years ago. Yeah. Wow, that was bold.
Yeah, it was. But, you had somebody, you had a family friend who went and did it, and, they were okay. And you saw a lot of international people going to this doctor, so it was a fourth of the price maybe.
Wow.
So it was a no-brainer.
So you've been doing this for a long time now, and what are some of the good success stories that you've had in doing customer service?
I think one of my all-time favorite stories is when we were working with our particular customer service department, the head of their department. He was having a lot of issues with another service provider. He had recently gotten hired by a large company down here in Florida. And, it was his responsibility to kind of turn the customer experience world around. He had been a former client of ours at a previous job or a previous position. So when he went to his new role, he told them that, hey, if you guys want to get the results that you're looking for, we're going to have to switch to this other company, in order for us to be able to help our agents deliver the customer service that they need. So, the CEO there and the IT director there, they weren't really too keen on making any moves, but because he was so adamant about it, and because this was an important goal of theirs, he was a champion of ours, and, we were able to win that business. But the real good part about that story is that this person was so impressed with the service that we gave him at both locations that a couple of years later, he actually reached out to us inquiring about, joining our company because he was so impressed with what we did. So I don't know if there's any better compliment than, somebody saying, hey, I'm so impressed with your service that I want to join your company.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot. That's definitely one of my all-time favorite stories.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, it definitely breeds like belief in everything you do. And it kind of like opens up how small of a world it is, because as we have expanded and customer service has become more prevalent all over the world, it's just kind of opened up more opportunities to where others may not have seen them before.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you're seeing in regards to find the right people at an executive level? Because I know recruiting entry level is kind of more the entry point for people outsourcing, either local or international. What about on a higher role, a higher profile?
Well, that's a good question. I think, with technology these days and artificial intelligence and all the different tools and resources that are available, you want somebody with that experience, but you also want somebody with their ear to the ground and, who's up to date with all the latest tools and options that are available now that can help you in that, because there's a lot out there now that didn't exist 2-3 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So you really want to do your due diligence when you're recruiting people or evaluating individuals to find out how familiar are you with all the different tools that are out there now that can assist us with what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, those are some great points. I think people don't realize how new of an industry it is, and that's why there's still a lot of times people have the bad stigma. They're like, oh, I hear somebody with a slight accent, and they don't want to talk to them at all. And sometimes we have people in the U.S. that have those accents as well. But the technology has, when you want to set up a call center before, it was a huge investment, took a lot of time. You'd have to have months of planning in order to get it launched. Nowadays with technology, you can pretty much get a new account launched within a very short period of time, weeks or days even.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also it touches on what we do as well, because just like what you said, setting up a call center used to take up time and resources, and same thing with a phone system or phone service. It used to be a big project. Now you can have 100 people up and running in a couple of hours.
Right. So. Yeah, and that would never have been before an option, because you'd have to run the trunk lines and really, if you tried to do VoIP or digital voice, it didn't work very well because the capacity and the bandwidth was not there. So technology has made it not only an option or a more viable option, even for small companies. Because I know before, if you were a small company, it's not even worth it because the setup cost was just too crazy. Now, for the setup cost is easier on both voice and the overall structure, that small companies can look at it as an option.
Absolutely. And now even, very small companies now have that option to have that big enterprise image where they can deliver that experience and service that the other companies can that have maybe some more resources.
What kind of or is there a minimum size that you typically focus on with the telco side?
Not really, because we'll work with businesses of all shapes and sizes. So there isn't really a minimum, but obviously the bigger your team is, the more value and benefit you're gonna you're gonna get from the system.
And then is it easier for you if they have all their operations set in one specific place, or if they have people working from home? How complex can it get done for them?
Oh yeah, I mean there's as long as you have an internet connection, it can be done.
And do they need any special machinery or components or any setup for them to have one person in California and then one person in Miami, let's say? How easy is that to run?
Well, it's very easy. Yeah, they just need a high-speed internet connection. That's it. And then we set it up. We take care of everything on the other end.
So it makes it much easier for them. So anybody, anywhere can pretty much launch things. And then on the support side for customer support, is that the same setup for you guys as well, that you've seen that you can kind of scale it anywhere? At any point?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as there's an internet connection, there's no limitation really.
That's perfect, and that's kind of the same thing we're seeing as well. It's we can set it up anywhere, anytime, and then the voice quality on. I guess sometimes when we look at hiring people, part of it is the culture. Like, do they understand the overall nuances of the American language that is spoken versus just speaking it and having the right accent? Do you find that it's the same thing with some of the operations you're working with? Yeah, sure. I mean,
there's obviously some local or cultural sayings that we say or do, or things that we that an overseas person might not be familiar with right away. But that really depends on the training that we give them and the ongoing support to get them up to speed with some of the other things that come up. But there's new words that come out every day that people might. So
yeah, that's true. We are a society that does evolve quite quickly. So that's one thing. When we do hire people and we're going through training, we look at, we have a part of the training that is more on the culture as well as the account itself, since that helps them get caught up if they don't understand it. Is that something you guys typically do as well?
Yes. But luckily what we're seeing is it's not as big as it used to be. That gap, it's becoming, the world's becoming a much smaller place overall. So I think more of us are finding that we're not that different from each other. And I think we're all starting to become a little bit more similar, in a weird way.
I agree. Some of those points are really interesting. When you had mentioned a little bit about the augmented reality and all that, there's a lot of technology that has kind of been changing the overall industry a bit. Do you think it's going to, I know there's certain people that say it's going to get to the point where you don't even need a human anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's going to be a mixed bag. We're definitely not there at that point yet where we can, replace the human touch. And I don't know if we're ever going to be there, to be honest. I think people like to know that they can speak to a human if they need to, or if there's an issue. In the future, will we eventually start to see technology blend in with reality, and for us not be able to tell the difference? Maybe. I am not one to say nothing is impossible, but I do think that humans will always play a key role in the customer experience journey. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm excited to see the technology, but I always feel like as long as there's the human element in there, I think that's the best route to go.
I think it's going to be an evolution because a lot of people see customer service almost very entry level. I don't know if you agree, but a lot of times when they're like, "Oh, you work customer service," they think you're just taking calls.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the evolution is going to happen is a lot of automation is going to take the entry level stuff, password reset, whatever, the very, very entry level stuff. And then as the more complex things, then the people working the phones are going to need to be a lot more skilled. They're going to be super agents in a way, right? I don't know if you've kind of see it the same way. And I think that's what technology will push to the point where people see you as a customer service person and they're going to be like, wow, that guy knows a lot of stuff versus just like password reset.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even the whole the position itself, it went from customer service to customer experience, right?
Yeah.
And
customer journey,
customer success now is that another one too? Yeah.
It's hard to figure out what you're supposed to use.
But I think they're all connected and they're all right. So.
And it's all about the customer, which is the key point.
Yeah,
completely agree. And that's, I think, the biggest fear of a lot of people is as they automate or as they add more technology to customer whatever, experience journey, whatever, is it going to alienate the customer? And I guess as long as that doesn't happen, if it's done to really better the experience, keep the simple, and then the more complex where somebody can really get it done effectively, I think that'll be a win-win for everybody, right?
Absolutely, yeah. A really good example or a basic example is like the IVR menu on your business phone system, right? Those things are designed to make our lives a little bit easier and for a better experience, but if they're not done properly, they could be extremely frustrating. And it could have a negative impact on the experience. So.
And that is where you get a lot of the negative stigma as well, because it's like, hey, I called in to talk to you, and you transfer me to this guy, you transfer me to this guy, I've been transferred 20 times, what's going on? Yeah. Thankfully, because technology's made things better, that doesn't happen as much as it used to in the past. Yeah. But that's a very good point, and that's technology as well. A lot of people don't realize it.
I think the future is going to be a blend of humans and technology working together. So
and it's going to make the world, like you said, a smaller place. Well, so we're talking that a little bit. There's certain customers or certain companies that do not have or make it very difficult to reach them. And I think there's a website you can go to and you can find their phone numbers. But
really?
What are your thoughts of that? Like when you either call and it drops you to like a dead voicemail queue, we'll call you when we want to, or you get no response email. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always a red flag for me. And it's a big thing that I use to determine whether or not I'm going to make a purchase. If you don't have customer service, it's probably for a reason, and it's not a good reason. So, it's not a good sign because if you have an issue, who are you going to go to? And emails, customer support is not there yet, or that process takes a lot longer, and it's just not a good experience for consumers to do business with somebody that doesn't have something in place to take care of you if you have an issue or a problem.
True. Although certain companies say, we offer either a free service or very, very low cost because we will omit the customer service component on that. So do you feel that's a fair trade-off that we trade price in order to allow no customer support?
I don't know if it's so much they're trading price over maybe their profits. I think there's a way to do both. So I think, in order to do things the right way, that has to be a part of the equation because there are options now that it's not as expensive as it used to be before to have good customer service or a good customer experience. So there's really no reason not to have it.
That's a good point. And at the end of the day, that still falls within the customer journey side that we were talking about earlier. Because if they're doing a good flow on the customer journey, then they can omit certain parts that would require customer service if they fulfill the overall flow correctly. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tarek, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate having you here on the Happy Customer channel. Why don't you let us know how we can get a hold of you?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, by the way. And if anybody's interested in getting more information about Ultatel or our services, you always visit www.ultatel.com, ULTATEL.com, and
perfect.
You can get more info on us there.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us today on the Happy Customer channel. Like, subscribe, or leave any comments on what you think we can improve or change. Take care.